Hey everybody, have you ever wondered why Shopify doesn't handle professional invoicing out of the box? Well, I've discovered something that's going to change how you think about your store's invoicing process. Now, running a Shopify store is challenging enough without having to worry about creating professional, compliant invoices for every sale. And that's where Sufio comes in. They're the trusted invoicing solution that's already powering over 6,000 Shopify stores worldwide. And what I love about Sufio is how it completely automates the invoicing workflow. So whether you're B2C or B2B, it automatically generates and sends professional invoices, credit notes, and other essential documents. No more manual work or worrying about tax compliance. Their system has been validated by certified accountants to meet regulations around the world. Now, here's what makes Sufio very special. They're officially recommended by Shopify B2B invoicing. That's a huge vote of confidence in my books. Their templates are professionally designed and are super easy to customize with your own branding. You get automatic tax calculations and compliance for both domestic and international sales. And here's the best part, their in-house support team actually helps you set everything all up. We're talking holding hands right from the beginning. So I've arranged something special for my listeners. If you visit sufio.com, that's sufio.com/fastlane, and you can get exclusive 90-day free trial. That's a full 3 months to transform your invoicing process and see the difference for yourself. Now remember, that's sufio.com/fastlane. Sufio is the professional invoicing made simple for Shopify stores. Plain and simple. So go check them out.
You're listening to eCommerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
So welcome back to eCommerce Fastlane. I am your host, Steve Hutt, and today I'm really excited about today's guest. So interesting. My role, as a lot of you know, inside Shopify when I was there as customer success manager. And one of my roles was, number one, to keep people on Shopify and teach these brands about the products and services that are available from within Shopify. But another part of that job description was really helping these brands, these marketers and these founders to find agency partners, and in some cases, even some tech stack marketing platforms and apps and things like that. The agency part of it was always a really interesting challenge for a lot of businesses because it really depended on the size of their business and then where the agency partner was. Could they take them on? The head count. There's a lot of different variables that come with it, trying to find the right marketing partner. And as we know, building a business, it takes a lot of specialized skill sets. And sometimes it gets expensive to have your own internal team member as you're growing your business or exploring a new channel. And I think that's where my guest today kind of fits into the mix. And his name is Behdad Jamshi. He goes by the name of B, but really he has this company called CJam Marketing. And it's really interesting what he does is he helps people find the right marketing partners. It can be a massive headache, the vetting process, and just trying to figure out, he's got a huge Rolodex of these agency partners. And he really is there to help you find the right partner to help get the outcome that you're looking for. So that's why I have him on the show today, because I think it was a role that I did in Shopify, and that, maybe not at his scale. And I would recommend a couple partners that I felt comfortable with, but I really didn't dig deep to understand truly where is this agency partner and do they work well with this current size or the current complexity of the current business. And so I think he kind of digs deep into those sorts of things. So hi B, welcome to eCommerce Fastlane.
Thanks for having me on the show, Steve.
Oh, my pleasure. So I'm just interested about your journey first. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what inspired you, I guess, to transition? I creeped your LinkedIn profile before recording. You go from this kind of engineering-ish type career path and now being more of a marketing connector.
Yeah, it's been a cool journey. I mean, as you figured it out through your detective work, I started out as an engineer. So I used to do sales engineering for pretty large company in Canada called TELUS, very similar to like the Verizon down in the US. And I work with a lot of B2B customers, typically working with businesses anywhere from about 50 to 1,000 type employee range, understanding like what's going on from a C-level perspective, an IT perspective, and then building out technology roadmaps, like how you get from A to B to C within an organization. And I learned a lot doing that. That's where a lot of my business consulting, sales, leadership, and technology experience came from. But on the marketing side, I started building out websites, Google Ads, SEO, typically over the weekend, and I hated doing 8-hour websites on the weekend. And I was like, listen, I like being an engineer. I make very good money. I don't need to be building websites on the weekend for a couple grand. So I started looking for different marketing partners to work with. And as I did that, I noticed that most marketing agencies didn't really understand business. And most businesses that are scaling don't really understand marketing. And so it was always this gap in the middle where I'd put people in the same meeting. They didn't speak the same language. And every agency says they can do everything. Case in point, I talked to a few today where I kind of called them out on it. But they're typically only really good at 1 to 3 things, if that. And so I thought, interesting, there's like a whole space here to be the connector. And what if I was able to find like 10 marketing partners and solve all the world's problems? Didn't work out that way.
No.
I've talked to now 972 different marketing agencies and experts.
Oh, wow.
And work with about 11% of that, but that number keeps dwindling down in terms of like who's in my vetted network to help customers.
Yeah.
So kind of became the super connector in the marketing space.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, when you just even go to Shopify and I was on the plus side of the business, but you go there and you do a search for like plus agency partners or plus technology partners and just kind of see. And it's just like, and then they have all these partners tagged what they believe their strengths are. But the reality is, I would agree with you that I think the best agency partners for most businesses are not the Swiss Army knife MarTech, because I feel that it turns out that they have to have their own silos. Then if they're that large and they're like, a 500 person agency or 1,000 person agency, and there's a lot of those in America right now, but I think they're really siloed off. And okay, well, this is the SEO kind of content people over here doing this thing. And you just wonder if you go through this silly kind of like sales process and then maybe get a project manager, but then you end up going over here. And I think the challenge, and you probably have seen this before, is that when you have larger agencies sometimes these different silos don't speak to each other. If there's like, development side of their business, okay, are they speaking to the SEO people? And then is there a content strategy and who's taking care of the implementation of the replatforming or the adding? I think I'm speaking your language here for sure.
100%. Yeah. Like when you're talking about it, like the account manager, how that account manager has to be so strong to understand the overall strategy to bring it all together. And then you have to also make sure all the individuals that are working on your account need to be top notch, right? And you called it in these bigger companies. I mean, you worked for Shopify. Yeah. What made Shopify work? It's the people, right? Because you have all of these silos. And if you don't hire A-type players, they're the ones like that are basically just like keeping everything together moving forward. It's similar for any large organization. And so if you're a smaller business, and I'm saying smaller, 7 or 8 figure business, you need to find people that are specialists, and then you need to bridge it together because you have more control over the outcome than trying to use one agency to do it all.
Yeah. No, 100%. I totally get it. So I want to talk a little bit about, I think some people, and then saying once again, back to the Shopify days, I feel that a lot of store owners at one point in their entrepreneurial journey, they've probably got burned by maybe choosing the wrong marketing partner. And I would bet from your experience matching merchants and agencies together, like what should people look for? Like, is this something that actually happens a lot? And then like, what's your process to vet and kind of make these warm intros?
Yeah, great questions. So typically a business will get burnt 3 to 5 times before they find an agency that they actually like. That's typically what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And if you think about 3 to 5 times, that's like you onboard someone, you get them up to speed, they try stuff to do for 3 to 6 months, and then you let them go. And so it could take you like 2 years to find just one partner that you actually really like to work with and constantly changing. So that's how much of a problem it is. And that puts you 2-3 years behind. If a competitor hits it on the first try, they're going to be a lot further ahead than you will be. So that's typically the pain point there. When it comes to like how I vet, there's multiple levels at this point. Since I've talked to so many, there's like this weird like gut feeling, right? So I'll always have a 30-minute call with an agency owner initially, get a sense of like who they are, where they came from, how they got to where they are. And then if I like that first call, then I have, okay, send me the stuff that you said that you can do. So if you told me you can do websites really well, show me the examples. You say you can run Facebook and Google Ads campaigns. What does it look like? What does your creative look like? What does your creative team look like? Like, give me that stuff in an email so I can start reviewing. So typically that process is like Loom videos being sent to me, case studies being sent to me looking over accounts, that type of stuff. And then if all of that looks good, I have an hour long to an hour and a half long deep dive where I go about 30 to 35 questions with an agency to just make sure that like everything makes sense and aligns with the past two conversations we were having. And then from there, it's like, okay, you moved into the vetted network. There is a paywall to get into my network as well. So I've had these multiple levels of filters to make sure that like you're not finding like an average agency through me. I don't want that. Yeah. And so that's the kind of process that I go into when it comes to just like finding the right marketing partners. And typically businesses, to your question of like, where did they typically fail? They only have like one meeting with a marketing agency partner and then it's proposal. And they'd never really spend a time to ask questions and really get an insight of like the agency. A lot of times when I ask businesses, well, how big is the agency? When did they start? The founder may have started it, but what are they really good at? And what did they expand into? So they might have started with SEO, but then they expand to other stuff. Like you need to really understand an agency before you hire them. And you need to have one call fully set up just to vet the agency. And then if they want to ask you questions, you set up another call. So there should always be a two-step sales process at a minimum to kind of like protect you from picking the wrong agency.
Right. And then, so what sort of things go wrong like that you've seen? Because I think what I'm trying to do is set the stage a bit here, because I think people listening, I mean, like you said, 4 or 5 agencies people are kind of on average are going through until they find one. And then there's this opportunity cost of not early on finding the best partner earlier than later, just for your own kind of growth trajectory. So what sort of things do go wrong? I know we talked offline before recording, but it's very interesting that I want to make sure that people know that these are some of the train wrecks that can happen. And maybe if we can share some of those kind of insights now, that people can kind of like move along quicker to locating their best partner.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things as a business owner, if you're going into a meeting with like, let's say a paid ads agency, what do you think they're going to try to sell you?
Well, they're going to try to tell you a retainer with probably a percentage of ad spend.
Exactly, right? And they're not going to talk to you about, hey, do you actually have a marketing strategy? And does paid ads actually make sense for what you need?
Right.
And so before even having these agency conversations, if you're a 7-figure business, you're moving on to 8, like you need to have a marketing strategy in place to go, these are the channels we want to use, and then go hunt for the agencies that do those channels versus going, I think this channel is going to work. I'm going to go talk to someone that does that channel and then just signing because it just sounds good. Most agencies, almost all agencies are only good at 1 to 3 things, and they're only going to speak to the things that they're good at. And so they don't know all the pieces of the puzzle or all the pieces of the marketing strategy. And as a business owner, you have to take that on. Right? Whether that's you have a fractional CMO in-house, you have a full-time CMO in-house, or a marketing director that gets it. I think that's number 1 before you're trying to get to that point of scale and move on to the next level.
Right.
And then some of the other things that I see go wrong is like, oh, you go and hire, say, a paid ads agency, and you don't actually ask questions of like how they actually implement. So for example, who's doing the creative process? Who comes up with the strategy? Who's actually giving you the creative assets? Because a lot of the agencies, very, very few have them in-house. A lot of them do it through partnerships. So really, you should be vetting 2 different agencies when you're hiring that one agency. Because just because they do Facebook ads at a certain level, you need to make sure that the creative partners are at the level that they need to be at to help those guys succeed. Because typically, those relationships in the back end are done whether they're founding someone through a conference or just relationships they had with friends. And it might not be the best person for you to hire. You might want to separate those 2 things out.
Right. That's very interesting. And so let's suppose that someone says, okay, I've had these failures in the past, and then maybe using some of the strategy that you just recommended. What's the step that someone may want to engage with you? And they say, hey, here's where I'm at. Like do you actually sit down with the prospective marketer or founder? And then like, I'm just curious on like the questions that you're going to ask this founder and finding out like what's missing in their business that they believe they need to have a marketing partner. I'm just curious on kind of what your vetting process is at the beginning.
100%. Yeah, no. So back when I used to work at TELUS, like all I would do is talk to businesses, understand their models. Like we were trained in just that. And so a lot of the times when I'm talking to a business on the front end, I'm talking about, okay, well, tell me how your model works. I try to fully understand how the business is running, from how they make money, what their offers are, what's coming down the pipe that they could potentially use for marketing, right? If you're bringing out new products.
Right.
And then trying to understand from there, the different like competition that you have, the size of team and resources that you have. And then operationally, if the marketing does work, do you have the right sales and operational people in place? A lot of the times I've actually seen customers go through finding the right partner, the ads work, they're getting to scale, and all of a sudden they run out of product because they can't get it in time for the next 3 or 4 weeks, right? So inventory management becomes a massive issue.
Yeah.
And so you have to think about all these different aspects. And so a lot of what I do is understand a business on the front end. Then I work on setting expectations so that they're ready for whatever partner that they come in to work with to kind of help them scale. That's typically where a lot of the work comes in, is just understanding the business.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like you're a business partner a little bit. Like you have a vested interest in kind of like in asking all the right questions, understanding kind of where they are, both in a maturity and a complexity standpoint and their growth curve, what's missing from a channel perspective, and then trying to figure out like what are the next steps. Sometimes it might not be a channel. Who knows? It could be, hey, we need help with our kind of our post-purchase experience.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, let's talk about it. Well, what are you currently doing? Well, a lot of people are really irritated because we don't deal with returns very well, or we're trying to go international. And I think, and all of a sudden, when you start asking these sorts of questions, specifically in the brand's kind of like growth trajectory, and you're like, oh, okay, I've isolated like these like 2 or 3 things. Would you agree with me that those things are important? Yes. Okay. And so, and then you try to figure out like their budget and kind of like what's their current investments in those channels or not. And like, oh, you want to go international? You know anything about it? No, I do not. Well, in that case, I believe I have a couple partners that can help you because they've helped other people go international with multilingual, multi-currency, all these sorts of things like duties and tax compliance, things like that. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, no, you're 100% hitting on the nail on the head. Like, for example, I was working with a $20 million bedding company, right? Like they sell beds, they have pillows, they have all these different types of things in 3 or 4 different brands. And just diving into what they're doing, you're asking, hey, I'm looking for a paid ads partner. Great. But like, who do you have in charge of email? And they have an insane amount of email lists.
Right.
And they go, well, we have this husband and wife team working on it. I think they're good. And so I was like, okay, if you think they're good, that's great.
Yeah.
Do anything. But do you want just like 2 or 3 of my partners to come in and give you an audit? And the cool thing about me is like, you can have those 2 or 3 people do an audit and then look over all of them and go, oh, these guys are all saying the same thing. Turns out with that one customer, we saved them $12,000 a month because of the partner currently in place was not looking at their SMS bills. And they're like, we are literally not using this. And we're spending $12,000 a month on just that. And that's going to pay for the next email marketing partner coming in.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh my.
Yeah. There's some crazy stuff that happens under the hood when, you're running a business, you're busy. There's not things you can think, there's not a lot of the stuff you can look at, and you're not looking at the details. And you're hoping that your partners are doing that. But it's always good to just have an outside perspective come in and go, are my partners doing what they need to do? And if the answer comes back, yeah, they're pretty good, cool, keep them. But if they're not, it's time to switch them out and find someone better, because that could be where your next lever is.
The thing is like, the old saying, like, you can't see the forest for the trees. And I think when you're kind of knee deep in the business, sometimes it's nice to have some intentional space to pull back for 30 minutes and kind of like, or longer, depending on the complexity of the business, but to talk about where you're at, where you fit right now. What are your plans for 2025? And then knowing that, then there's some opportunity here of like finding the right, because it suits you and does you well. Like the CJAM marketing business, it does you well as a founder of the organization to want to listen and understand and ask the right questions. But then on the flip side, knowing that you have some strategic partner. I mean, you said you're 900 and some partners that you vetted, and you're rolling down to probably like 90-ish of ones you actually highly recommend based on the categories that they do well in. So I think that's a really interesting concept.
Yeah, I haven't found a shortcut for this method. I'll tell you, I wish I had it. I'm an engineer. I'd love to use technology and create the marketplace that's on the web. But it ultimately comes down to people, right? Like understanding the business, where they're at, understanding the personality of the person running the business, and then you have to match them with the personality of the agency that's running, right? Like it's a matchmaking service at the end of the day. And I find a lot of like, I love it. Like the best feeling comes when you make a really good match and people go like, hey, B, those 4 matches you gave me, we did 10 million in sales and we did 3 million in profit. And that's because of the connection you made. And I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, maybe I should change my rev model to like get a percentage of all this growth. But that's for another day.
Yeah, 100%. You do have a lot of clients and you have a lot of case studies and stuff like that on the website, cjammarketing.com. But is there anybody or 1 or 2 people that you could talk about publicly at no and saying, hey, here's what the problem they had. They came to me. And then I made some, strategic recommendations. I know you just threw out some numbers here, but is there anything specific about any partner that or a D2C brand that says, hey, this is the problem I had, came to you, and all of a sudden now here's the upside they got because of your process?
Yeah. So I've had quite a few customers come to me. There's an e-com brand that came to us looking for a few different things, but ultimately we ended up helping them with SEO and CRO.
Okay.
And they initially started out with about 20,000 visitors happening on our website a month.
Right.
A year later, they've increased 3 times that. So, when people say 300%, you're like, is that going from like 100 to 300? No, it's going from like 20,000 to 60,000 sessions. They've grown 30% over that year. And with the conversion rate going up by 0.3 as well. So they're actually getting even better conversions on the traffic that's coming in. And that's just with an SEO partner that does CRO as well. And they're expanding their services into email marketing as well for that same customer. And they've been working with each other now for the last like 2.5 years. Like that's rare to talk about, like those relationships lasting that long. And that's just one of the examples that we've been able to help with.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what's typically the process then? So if someone says, hey, you know what, like they learning to the show today, they understand that, yes, clearly I want to break out into these channels, or I feel that maybe in-house, maybe the marketer or the founder has been wearing a lot of hats, and sometimes being too deep into the weeds and having to be an absolute specialist, sometimes it clearly does make sense to find the right people to fill those fractional roles to execute on whatever it is. If it's an SEO thing, if it's a CRO thing, maybe it's, who knows? There's all different like marketing things that need to get done. So what's typically the next step for people that are listening right now and saying, hey, I'm missing something potentially, or I want to grow my business in 2025. And then how do you want people to engage, kind of like next steps?
Yeah, I mean, the best way is reach out to me. I think you just mentioned my website at www.cgemmarketing.com. You literally just fill out the form there, book a call with me. We'll sit down, we'll chat about your business and go through everything. And from there, I typically come up with a lot of different ideas because of all the different partners that I've talked to. Right. I'll actually be like, have you thought about this? Did you know you could do this? Like, there's so many things that people don't know because they don't have the network to know like what's out there.
Right.
And based on that, if they end up wanting to move and engage forward with me, I basically end up going to work and chatting with my partner network and come back and say, here's the recommendation that I have for this, this, and this, once we figured out what the strategy was on the first call. And then from there, a founder goes, well, I want to talk to these people. And I just start making introductions directly to them so they can have those conversations and those follow-ups. It's, you hire an HR person to take care of building out your team for you as you're scaling. It's the same thing on the marketing agency side and outsourcing. Like, that's what I do. And I help businesses just find the right people in the right time. And if I always come with feedback, right? Like 3 months in, let me know how things are going. Do you need someone better? Is there someone else I can fit into there? And I'm typically just like in the background, making sure that the relationships are going well.
It's amazing. I know there's a lot of different types of marketing strategy that's available out there. I know you have a lot of your partners sorted on the website, like everything from website and branding. There's a high level, just like quote unquote marketing, but there's things like, think about SEO and paid ads and email and SMS and push and conversion optimization. There's a lot of stuff, even Amazon. That's another whole, half the internet, or at least commerce, is done on Amazon. Yeah. So it's another whole great opportunity to get into the buy box and Amazon ads. And there's some great partners for that. And so I guess my question to you is that those are listening today, are you finding, because you deal with so much in the marketing space, are there certain types of categories that you feel are the most progressive right now, where people, if they were, I know everybody's had a different kind of complexity and maturity, but are you seeing any types of marketing that are becoming more and more popular now, and people are wanting to implement it, but feel they don't have the skill set to do it, but they know that it likely could affect their bottom line?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's, funny enough, podcasting is one of the bigger ones.
Oh.
Even for like B2C, right? It's like, think about your B2B aspect of your business and wanting to try to get in front of the right ICP.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're targeting the people that you want to partner with your podcast. So it's not about just like the listeners, but it's about the people who you want to partner with. And so a lot of like B2C and even B2B businesses are actually using that kind of strategy. And you're also starting to see more on LinkedIn and Twitter and those types of things, like just people that are trying to just share their knowledge around the B2C space, and they're running their brand and people like to follow. And so they're building a following around it. It's just another form. People typically use the Instagram and TikTok. Who knows how long that's going to be around for?
Yeah.
But a lot of creators have moved into the LinkedIn and Twitter realm in the B2C space to build that audience there. And those are kind of like the two channels that I'm seeing in like 2025, like kind of growing and being kind of like the interesting outside of the box stuff. Outside of, obviously, everyone runs Facebook ads and trying to figure out their creative aspect of things, because creative means everything at this point.
Right.
But those are the two areas that I'm seeing in the B2C space that people are typically going into. And SEO has always been a thing, even though AI is coming over and changing a bunch of stuff. We know how that's changed the whole affiliate game. But there are still businesses and e-commerce businesses doing very well on the SEO side, especially if they're doing things like the Reddit strategies where they're injecting their products into the different posts and strings. Like there's some Reddit strategies that are happening underneath the hood for SEO, around like parasite SEO and that kind of stuff. And that seems to be something that others are looking into as well.
I've learned too a lot, and I see even on social and stuff like that, even people DMing me, but just this whole Google's kind of AI overviews and stuff. And now even with Perplexity is now connected to Shopify, and they're allowing people to buy from within app now directly and putting your product catalog in there. And, that's kind of like a recommendation engine. And so it's interesting to think about how can you make your e-commerce store discoverable and crawlable, and the natural choice for these. And part of it is, it really comes out, especially if it's a Google powered property, the whole idea is this kind of this expertise and authoritativeness and trustworthiness that is kind of touted around the SEO world. And part of it is just, exactly what you're talking about, getting out there wide. I would agree with you about the podcasting side, because just think about the high links you get from podcasting, being on YouTube and Apple and Spotify. These are like, in the SEO world, these are DR95. These are huge inbound links that come back to your business. So I could see how that could be powerful. I just think I've learned too a lot about traffic diversification, which I think is kind of where this conversation is going a bit. Like, are you on, and as a D2C brand, like you can be on Reddit and get into those threads and making comments and stuff like that. Not a pitch fest, but really offering, you understand the niche that you play in and the problem you solve, getting in there. What about Quora? And, is it okay to have an Etsy store? Should you be on Pinterest? Yes. What about Medium and LinkedIn? And, there's stop relying on Google only for your traffic, organically anyways. Get out there and diversify, because then Google's getting all these signals from all these different properties. And you'll wonder when they do crawl your information and scrape your information for recommendations in these AI overviews and other different tools, that you come up as a natural choice.
Yes. Exactly. It's about brand building ultimately at the end of the day, and that's where marketing is moving towards. Yeah. And you don't need that, if you have the right marketing coordinator or marketing director, that could be their job, right? Like they're building content on one platform. How do you separate that and expand that to all these other platforms?
Right.
Assistants, VAs don't cost very much, right? So if you need them to be looking on the web for certain things to be able to comment on, and then having a system built around that, you could build a pretty cool marketing engine there that could end up not costing very much, but reap tons of dividends down the road.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, this has been very educational. It's almost like you feel like a merchant success manager at Shopify, except more at another whole level, and knowing that you have the intentional space, you work with brands and marketers and saying, hey, what's keeping you up at night? And then knowing that, let's vet a couple solutions and then make some warm intros. I think it's a really cool business model. I think that's why I want to have you on the show, because it's just it's a job that maybe a success team member had to do or should have done, but it really wasn't a business model. Success team members had a lot of hats to wear. You are solely focused on understanding the problems of marketers right now and founders today, and going, what can we do to solve that problem? And you've vetted them all. So that's amazing.
Thank you for articulating that so well. I don't even need to do it.
I'm sold. All right, good stuff. B, it was awesome to meet you. Thank you so much for recording today. So it's cjammarketing.com. You don't know what you don't know. Go there and check them out. I think there's a book, a free consultation up in the corner. Any kind of parting notes you want to share with everybody?
No, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm always happy to help businesses grow. It makes me feel good because everyone wins.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, this is lovely. All right, have a great afternoon.
You too.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of eCommerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.